look at where we are. We are in the middle of the Australian bush with snakes and all types of shit that's gonna kill us. So I'm here with Oliver Joyce, the developer of the famous Swords and Sandals series. We're both working on platformers now.
That's right.
And so we've got a lot to talk about constantly. You don't want two levels kind of back to back that look the same. And I think that's what there's a pitfall that a lot of designers fall into, and I see it all the time.
Yeah.
Is where you can have multiple consecutive levels that have essentially the same kind of feeling.
It doesn't really feel like you've progressed. Even though the layout might be different, it doesn't really feel like you're moving forward in the story, because you're essentially telling a story through each level, right? And that often will then tie into your design of the game itself, because of the level itself. Because now knowing that the setting is a storm, it's windy, it's miserable, but that will impact how you design a level. You might find there's more cliff areas, more verticality to your level. I kind of feel like there's too many platform games out there, which is kind of ironic considering I'm making one myself. I actually tweeted about this a few days ago, almost like a warning to my past self, because it's too late now, but I would really think long and hard before making a platform game in 2020.
Platformers have always been perhaps the most saturated genre, I would say. Even going back to the Super Nintendo or before that, the platformers were always the main genre being created. So it's no surprise that we are where we are now.
Also, the thing with platform games, probably more than many other genres, is the amount of content you need. Because you might design a really nice set piece of, there's like a bridge that you run over and then it explodes and so on. You only do that once and then that content's used. Whereas with like a fighting game or a role-playing game, you're going back to the same locations a lot. And you're just required to generate a lot of content that's only seen briefly by the player. And the same is true of a lot of 3D games like Uncharted and so on, which is still essentially 3D platformers. I've just really come to the understanding of like, this is a lot of work for something that the game only is about an hour's gameplay right now. And that's, 9 months of development. Man, if I was to make this game 30 or 40 levels, it'd take me years, right?
It takes time.
Yeah.
You can make a platformer, but to make an exceptional platformer, one that's going to be something that's actually successful, that generates revenue over the next few years and pays you back for your hundreds of hours, if not thousands of development time, then that's not easy to do. Before I even started coding up Blood and Mead, I went back and I did so much research. I read various design philosophy books, just to kind of lay the philosophical framework for the design, I guess is the best way to put it. And part of that process was playing a lot of old retro games, because there is so much value to be extracted from some of those old titles.
And you can learn from the good games and the bad games as well. You can learn from games that were good at the time that aged badly. And nostalgia is a powerful thing, but if you try to recreate we were talking the other day about Castlevania 4. Fantastic game. At the time I had that on Super Nintendo, but you've got to play that now and it's very poor hit collision. The movement is floaty. It wasn't very well made, because considering it was using the same...
Castlevania 4 was probably, I would argue and say it was okay.
Yeah.
It was one of the better ones. Is the Super Nintendo Bloodlines or something?
It's the one... It's just called Super Castlevania 4.
Right. Well, I mean, it's better than the Simon's Quest. Let's say.
Yeah. Castlevania 2 was Simon's Quest.
Yeah, those games had their own problems, but they were also much older. You see, so it's very difficult to compare NES to Super Nintendo experience as well.
But when you want to try and, especially if you're making like, say with Spartacus, it's a retro themed game and trying to capture what was the best, the best elements of those old games without recreating them completely, because they have some flaws. They're not perfect. And you don't want to recreate everything. Shovel Knight's a great example of a game that takes the gameplay and aesthetic of the older games that had some really nice modern menus and save features and all sorts of things that weren't really possible in the old games. So when you're making your game, you want to consider, what do I want to take from these old games and what do I want to leave out? Because that what you leave out is just as important and can make the difference between a good game and a game that's forgettable. You know, a game, you know, asks a player, give me your time and I'll give you a rewarding experience. And it's not always, you know, what's promised on the box. And a lot of games will waste your time and do it, you know, unashamedly. And that's not something you know, you can get away with more than once. Games that waste your time often will be sold and then they've got the money, but you're not getting any repeat business. And you can't get away with that as an indie. You know, big studios like EA and the Assassin's Creed franchise and so on are notorious for wasting people's time. But they can do it because they've already got the players locked in. But if you're an indie and you go, hey, here's a platform game where you've got to collect 100 coins before you can get past the first level, that's a time waste.
So which way should we go? Should we continue up here?
Straight up here, yeah.
Straight up here. It's quite high.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we'll stop here to have a bit of lunch. So anything you're going to be working on when you get home this weekend?
This is a good question. I mean, I've started adding the cutscenes into the game, and I know as a player of games, I always skip cutscenes. As a developer, I always want to make cutscenes, so there's a bit of a conflict there, right? So I've started to make these cutscenes pretty short and sweet and consistent, right? So every cutscene is in the game. Player arrives at a point, little cutscene triggers, using the same camera, a little bit of dialogue. Only ever 3 lines of dialogue: player, enemy, player, or whatever. Then it keeps going. So no cutscene is more than about 15 seconds long. If you're actually playing a level, you're immersed in it, you're probably more likely to be interested in like a little bit of text that is incidentally pops up. But if it breaks everything and you go to a cutscene, you're like, oh, just get me back to the game. I don't know, I'm really torn because I do want cutscenes, and I think every game developer thinks they're a filmmaker, you know what I mean? We all think that we're,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, with that said, you touched on something there that I'm a fan of, and that is educating the player not just on how to play the game, but on the lore and the backstory of the character within the game itself. Anyone who is making a story-driven game that requires understanding of the backstory, I would say be very careful not to limit that to a block of text before the game starts.
Absolutely.
Because if it is skippable and players will skip it, then they're going to miss out on perhaps like the main understanding of what the game is about in terms of the story arc. Both our games are currently available to Wishlist on Steam, and it'd be really nice if some of you guys went over there to check them out. It really helps us as creators, and it helps the Steam algorithm to give us a chance at some kind of discoverability.
Absolutely. And you know, we think that you'll probably enjoy these games. If you like the way we talk and our theories on game design and philosophy, so much of that goes into these games themselves, and they're good games, they're polished games. Spartacus and Blood and Mead on Steam, wishlist now.
Yeah, so I'll pop the links in the description of the video below. So yeah, thanks guys, appreciate it.
Kind of reminds you, I mean, the terrain's very different from Skyrim, but it does have that wilderness feel.
One thing worth talking about a little bit is polish in video games. And
what do you mean by polish?
Well, this is a widely used term, but it can be interpreted in different ways, I suppose. I guess my interpretation of polish is the sheen, the gloss, you could say, that makes average content stand out in a meaningful way.
Absolutely, and polish is which way?
Wow. The thing with polishing is and a lot of game developers fall into this trap, and it's over polishing too early. And this has always been an issue for me, and maybe for you also, and I'm
Because
sure
it's
for a lot of
fun
people.
to do.
It's fun. It's fun. It's fun to make
rewarding.
things look as good as they can. But there's a balance that has to be found between progress on the larger game and the polish of the early levels. Yes, you need to have those early levels somewhat polished because you want to be making game trailers, you want to be making screenshots, you want to be potentially finding a publisher, and you might want to submit your game to a game festival or something. So you need something ready to go on hand because you don't know what's going to come up that someone's going to say, hey, have you got a playable version of your game, like a demo version? So you kind of want to, and that's what we call the vertical slice.
Yes.
And it's kind of an industry jargon.
Represents one really well-made level that has everything, has sound effects, it has, complete particle effects and full animations and everything. And that's one way that a lot of developers will approach their game is just to, I'm going to make a very small section of the game that is close to resembling the final product.
The problem is with polish has no end.
Yeah.
You can polish forever, and it's kind of true because your polish, it comes down to your own creativity. It's like just like a painting may never truly be finished.
And then you go back and don't like what you did in the first place, right? Where stuff that you thought looked good early no longer holds the same sort of wow factor to you, or the aesthetics of your game changes, right?
It's finished when the artist stops.
Yeah.
That's when it's finished.
I can't remember. It was like Miyamoto or someone said that a game is never truly finished, only released.
Yep.
And it's pretty well. It's pretty true.
Listen to that. That's put that on a post-it note and stick it above your computer. I don't know how we're going to get down from here, Ollie.
Ah, yeah.
It looks insane. We've just arrived at what is essentially a kind of sheer cliff face here. So we're going to abseil down this thing.
It is, but it's actually...
So cinemachine, that's interesting, right? Because when I started my game, there was no cinemachine. So I built a lot of the functionality that you might see cinemachine offer 2D games, which is kind of camera scaling and slow panning, and it's kind of
camera look at this, camera look at
yeah,
that.
right. Because I'm using a dynamic camera system where I reposition the camera based on the action in the game, so that the action is always at the forefront. Because the last thing you want is to kind of be locked down with a static camera that is creating these leap of faith situations and stuff like that. So you need to kind of direct the player where to go by using the camera. Next project I will probably use cinemachine because I'm creating my own camera controller that has this much functionality. It has been a challenge, and it is not without its problems, let's say.
Cinemachine's really good because you can kind of create these sort of bounding areas around, where the camera is limited to, how far should it look forward, so you don't get that really jittery camera effect that you would get in a lot of really basic platform games. Where I find it a little bit challenging is that it's quite hard to just move the camera because you can't just put a transform, tween on the transform of the camera and move it around because it has its own constraints and different sort of ways of doing things. So I was trying last night to do a little cutscene in the game, and I was trying to move the camera and I couldn't. And then I realized that I need to do it a different way, and you actually have to set up several virtual cameras in the game and then go, this virtual camera targets this enemy and this one. So it's a different way of looking at it because I was going, well, why do I need multiple cameras? But that's how it does it. So like everything, you have to adjust to a new way of thinking it. And I think that, I'd recommend cinemachine for anyone new doing a 2D game, but if you already got a game and a camera that's working pretty much how you want it, I would think twice before moving over.
What would you say about what about like prototypes? So when you're first starting a game, would you do you think using cinemachine from scratch is good?
Yeah, I think so, because
is there some overhead to getting it set up to begin with?
No, it's pretty easy to set up, and it is designed for all sorts of interesting stuff with cutscenes and the more hence the name cinemachine, the more cinematic stuff. But because I don't know how you've done your cutscenes, but mine are all done by code. So I go, cutscene 1 function, camera do this, tween here, wait 7 seconds, then do this, all via code. But I think cinemachine, once you do it all in timeline, animate it like that, which is more visual, but I hadn't set mine up to do that. So.
For cutscenes, depending on how they're being used, I might create a separate scene with a slightly different version of my camera, so that the
zoomed in. Or...
yeah, so the cutscene code is not interfering with my main camera controller code, because quite often you may make some kind of cutscene or very specific functionality for the camera that is only used once or twice, and if that code happens to exist inside the main kind of loop of the camera or something like that, it can cause conflict, let's say. But yeah, so yeah, cinemachine is cool, I think, and I want to look into it in my next project. But
I think I would recommend for your game, having seen what I've seen of it, and the fact they've already got these pans and like camera stops here, shows this. I wouldn't try and replace it with cinemachine.
So we've just about reached the end of this game dev adventure. Hope you guys have enjoyed it and enjoyed some of the topics we've covered. We'll be doing more of these in the future, so stay tuned. And in the meantime, if you've liked it, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more game dev videos. And jump over to Ollie's channel, Whiskey Barrel Studios. I'll link it down below. It does a lot of cool stuff. All right, guys. Peace.
See ya.